Hi, my name is Chris and this is Battle Nonsense. Today we will take a look at the netcode of Ring of Elysium, a free-to-play 60-player battle royale game by Tencent Games from China. Players and the media first learned about Ring of Elysium back in February, when the developers launched a closed beta which was only available in Asia. The reason why players outside that region were interested in that game was that it did not only look a lot like PUBG, players who VPN'd into Asia to play the beta also claimed that it felt like a more polished version of PUBG. In September, the game then released as an early access title on Steam in North America and Asia, followed by the release in Europe less than a week ago. And while it still looks quite a lot like PUBG, the developers made a few significant changes since the closed beta to separate it from the competition. Now, before we dive into the networking of this game, I want to tell you about a few things that I noticed during my tests. First of all, Ring of Elysium started off by leaving a very bad first impression, as the game requires admin permissions to run. Which is just unacceptable, as there is no valid reason for a game to require that level of access on your PC. So that must be fixed as soon as possible. Then there is the options menu, which does not allow you to change the resolution nor the refresh rate when you run the game in full screen, which you must do to get the best performance. It will simply use the resolution and refresh rate that you set for the Windows desktop. There is also no option to change the render scale or render resolution. It only offers 3 quality options, where standard is for some reason better than normal, and there is also no FPS limiter built into this game. Speaking about the frame rate, the game is capped at 120 FPS, which could be down to a limitation in the Quicksilver 10 engine. Now, when it comes to the netcode of this game, then I'm sorry to report that it does not show you your ping to the game server, nor will it let you know when your connection to the server has an issue, as there are no icons that show up when you have a high ping, lots of latency variation, or packet loss. When it comes to the servers, then you can currently choose between 3 different regions, which are North America, Europe, and Asia. I guess that more will be added later, but currently there does not seem to be any info about which region will be added next or when. Now, before we take a look at the network delay, let's find out how many times per second the client and the server exchange data. As Wireshark shows, the server's send rate is very high, with an average of 141 packets per second. However, that does not necessarily mean that the server also runs at such a high simulation rate. Just take PUBG for example, where its servers run at a tick rate of 30 Hz while they send 60 updates per second to the clients. You can find out more about that in my PUBG netcode analysis videos. Now, usually you see the server send updates at a stable rate, like 30 or 60 packets per second, and the clients send updates at a higher rate, which can sometimes show quite a lot of variation, as the client's send rate is usually affected by the frame rate of the client. However, in this game, the send rate of the client almost exactly matches the send rate of the server, which I've never seen before in a game that does not use fixed and therefore stable send rates. These high send rates also seem to have quite an impact on the bandwidth requirements, as this game needs a lot more up and downstream bandwidth than other battle royale games, despite the lower player count of 60 players. Now, how much delay is there between 2 players when each of them has a ping of 25 milliseconds to the server? In my tests I measured an average damage delay of 60.2 milliseconds and an average gunfire delay of 62.2 milliseconds. So that alone shows that it is very unlikely that the servers run at a simulation rate of 141 Hz on average. Now, while these delays are not too bad, player movement sadly has a lot more lag, which is a major issue that only gets worse at higher pings. So that is something that the developers must work on, as it also has an impact on how far behind cover you will receive damage. Speaking of lag compensation, or how games favor the shooter, even if you have a ping of just 25 milliseconds to the server, which you can't know because the game doesn't tell you, you must be prepared to die far behind cover in Ring of Elysium, as the server will confirm shots coming from high ping players, no matter how much they lag. If you have watched my Netcode 101 video, then you know that it does not have to be this way, as games can mitigate this issue. But sadly, only very few development studios seem to be willing to put in the effort to ensure that players with a good and stable connection to the server have a good online experience, while at the same time still allowing those who have a bad connection to the server to hit other players. Again, if you want to know more about that, then please have a look at the description down below, where you can find a link to my Netcode 101 video. So Ring of Elysium is a fun battle royale game, which features a few unique mechanics and designs that set it apart from other games like Blackout, PUBG or Fortnite. But the developers still have a lot of work ahead of them, as the movement delay is pretty bad, the options menu leaves a lot to be desired, it does not provide any info about your connection to the server, and the game client requires admin rights to work, which is just unacceptable. And that's all for today. In case that this was the first netcode analysis that you've watched, I hope that I could spark your interest in this critical aspect of every multiplayer game, and I will do my best to keep you updated on the progress that the developers make. I also know that many of you are waiting for my Battlefield 5 netcode video, but to be honest, testing that game continues to be a nightmare, as the maps are so crowded that my test players usually don't survive for more than 30 seconds. And since DICE removed the option to switch teams, it is even a challenge now to get them into different teams, which I must do so that I can do my damage delay tests. There are also no empty servers to test on, as the matchmaker spawns and kills game server instances on demand. And I can't rent my own server, as that does not exist in Battlefield 5. When I do find an empty server in the server browser, then I either just get an error message when I try to join, or it fills up with players in a matter of minutes, which means that my test players have a very short lifespan again. So I'm doing my best to test that game, but that test will probably be a short one, as I can't run the interesting ones where I would try to figure out what is really going on with the time to die versus time to kill, and the issue that you receive damage behind cover. Now, if you enjoy the videos that I release on my channel and would like to support what I do, then you can find the link to my Patreon in the description down below. Without the awesome support that I get from my patrons, Battle Nonsense could simply not exist anymore. So if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like, subscribe for more, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, have a nice day and take care. My name is Chris, and this was Battle Nonsense.